What we're trying to do today is, first of all, I work in our diversified markets, or chief diversified markets officer for Compere. First of all, we want to thank you for taking time. I'll do my best to keep you entertained and maybe give you a little break during your lunch hour. I'd really like to have this more of a conversational tone, and I would say I relate it to having a lot of conversations with clients throughout the last, especially couple of weeks. We're in times that we probably haven't seen in the past. What I would want to assure you of, as of right now, as an organization, as Compere, we understand times of volatility. My wife, we were out for a walk, and normally I'm gone a lot. So, but now I've had this opportunity to go on walks with my wife about every day, and really at the end of the day. And it's something we normally haven't done. But she looks at me and she goes, your hair is getting gray. And I said, that I appreciate the compliment. But I would say Compere is no different than my gray hair. We've probably seen times where things are a little bit more uncertain, a little bit more volatile. This is a new way with the COVID-19 virus that none of us have really seen before. But I think as an organization, what we want to assure you that we still have the same, I call it, determination and way of how we want to work with you. I would tell you that for sure that our commitment to try to serve the marketplace has not changed or wavered any. Now, how we're delivering is fundamentally different. We always have to take in consideration the health and well-being of our clients and our team members. In addition to that, I think what we want to make sure is that we're also taking care of you as clients along the way. So what we're trying to do is adapting, just like all of you, we're adapting to a new day. And so what I would encourage all of you to do is probably look how we're trying to interact with you is use some of the technology tools that Compere has available. We have our online banking, which is basically access 24/7, 300, every day of the year, that you can go on to your computer and really look at your balances and kind of take a look at your loans and those type of things. In addition to that, I would say the other things you can do is we have our Compere mobile app, but you have to go on our online banking first to sign up for that, where you can actually go via your phone and access your information as well. We have our client portal, which again gives you access to your client information. As we continue to go through kind of this current state with dealing with the coronavirus, how we interact with all of you is going to be a little bit different. And I think all of us are trying to adapt to change. And I think fundamentally what we're going to probably talk about over this, I call it period of 10 to 15 minutes. And the other thing I would encourage all of you is if you have questions along the way, make sure you ask them. I have a little chat box that I can see some questions along the way. The other thing that I would also encourage you to do if you have questions, and I'll go through probably a wide range of commodities that I deal with. When you look at diversified markets, I probably look at every commodity within agriculture. The other thing that I'll actually also try to do is make sure to try to connect the dots as best I possibly can. And try to make sure that you're trying to understand the overall big picture and not just looking. And I think that will probably be one of the lasting messages I'll try to give you is making sure that you think differently about your operation. We're in a global marketplace. In addition to that, you have to understand what's happening fundamentally, not only on your operation, but also globally. And the times of volatility has probably never been more volatile than what we've currently seen. one last couple of commercials that I'll talk about with regarding Compere is we also have a call center. That number is 844-426-6733 that you can talk to our call center. That's available if you want to talk to your FO, which I'm sure many of you, if you're working with Compere today, that you probably have them on speed dial today. And so making sure that, number one, that you have that access to us to make sure that we're delivering on behalf of you and your business going forward. Needless to say, there's been, if I would look at, especially in the last week, and I'll get to this point right now, is the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program. The amount of emails and requests that we've gotten, I would say, has probably been something I haven't seen anywhere. So we have really put together a small group that specializes in that. And the other thing I would tell you with the SBA program on the Paycheck Protection Program, it's still a bit of a moving part. I know the first day that you can potentially apply is tomorrow. There's certain things that you're going to have to provide, and I'm going to go to my notes, Rebecca, and the people from Compere, is from clients you're going to have is the date that you started your business, some detailed information regarding especially your payroll, your average monthly payroll costs for your employees over the last 12 months, as outlined by SBA, also your annual revenue, and then your business mailing address. We have been working feverishly on this. The other thing I would want to stress, and the amount of information on this program, I've probably seen more information come across than anything that I can remember in quite a few years. I would encourage all of you to make sure that you go to our website, which is compere.com, and there'll be a slash. It'll say compere.com, then /paycheck, then -protection. That's where instead of me talking about that, I think what you need to kind of soak that information in to make sure that you fully understand what you're going to have to provide to get a complete application. And that's an important piece, because we can submit the application. That's what we can do, but you're going to have to complete that application. And it's really a grant, and the average interest rate is 50 basis points, or 0.5% interest, and it's over a 2-year period. And what we continue to hear in this kind of a ongoing target, that those loans will actually be forgiven. The other thing I would want to put in perspective, and I think this is probably the context that I'll always talk about in a lot of these types of discussions, is not only do you think about the farm economy here, but also what's happened across the United States when in relation to small businesses. It's almost hard for a lot of us to comprehend, and it's impacted not only our economy, but also the greater U.S. economy. I have a lot of faith in the United States that we'll get through this. And I think that's the other part that I would encourage you to make sure that you have some patience along the way, that, perseverance goes a long ways, and the American farmer is probably the most resilient people that I know anywhere. Those of you that might be joining right now, my name is Mark Greenwood. I'm the Chief Diversified Markets Officer for Compere. We thank you for taking time and listening to this short piece regarding a little bit of the marketplace, especially on all the ag commodities. What I'd really like to focus on over the next couple minutes is probably the average day of either our loan officers or probably the people that we interact with every day. I would say over the last couple weeks, if you'd be talking to anybody, especially that are face to face with our clients, they've been busy on the phone. I normally, in my past career with Computer, I was a loan officer for almost over 20 years. And so usually when things are a little bit more volatile, a little bit more stressful, you get a lot of calls. The first thing that I always think about with that is I'm honored that people have a tendency to call me and look for advice. And I think at Compere, what we try to do every day is to make sure that we, first of all, listen and understand what that client is thinking. And when I kind of go through this presentation or just this, I call it overall discussion, I try to put in my head what you're all going through as well. All of us are in a different environment. You're talking to somebody that normally is on the road for well over 100 nights a year and driving probably 30 to 40,000 miles a year. And I have not driven 100 miles in my car in the last 2 weeks. And so we're sitting at home and we're doing business this way. All of you that are producers or related in the ag business, you are essential to the overall security of the United States. You're still doing your work every day in order to make sure that we have food on the table for the rest of the country. What a noble profession as well. All of you that are producing, though, you're looking at the markets and going, what the heck just happened? And I think that's probably a lot of the things that my discussions with the clients that I've talked to, they're trying to understand, okay, how did this all happen? How quickly it happened? And what do I do now, right? I mean, I'm wondering if other people, as I'm going through this discussion, are they thinking the same thing? I would say every conversation, they're saying, okay, how long is this going to take? When is it going to get back to normal? And what should I be doing? And I think I want to go back to where we were 90 days ago. And you got to remember, in January of this year, we really had record unemployment. So unemployment was probably the lowest we've seen in many years. Stock market was at 29,000. You actually, if you're a grain producer, basis, especially in the Midwest, was fairly tight. There was probably some bids by some ethanol plants, and I'll talk briefly about ethanol here shortly. Basis was tight because the economy was roaring, and so you're getting some bids close to $3.80 to $4, depends on where you're at in the Midwest. In addition to that, if you were a dairy farmer and you looked at Class 3 milk, we had a tough go for the previous 3 to 4 years. The last part of 19, we actually finally saw some good prices. And if you looked in Class 3 milk for 2020, we actually had some very good prices. If you're a swine producer, it all depends on a little bit of what type of marketing agreement that you probably had. If you're on a cutout contract, which really relates to the cuts of pork, and you had that contract, your revenue wasn't probably too bad, and you were actually looking at to having not a bad year, and there were some opportunities to probably lock in some favorable margins. Well, come 90 days later, we've got a fundamental change, and I think that's what everybody's trying to get their head around. And I'll probably start with the ethanol industry right now, because it has a direct correlation to corn prices. Probably the first part of March, you had basis was probably, and I live in Mankato, Minnesota, and so those of you that are in Minnesota probably know where Mankato is, but those of you that are elsewhere, it'd be southwest of the Twin Cities by about 80 miles. Corn basis is probably close to 10 to 15 under. I would say as of today, you might have several ethanol plants that probably are not taking bids on corn, and basis has flipped to being 10 cents under to probably 40 to 50 to 60 cents under the Chicago board. And so Number one reason for that is when you look at what's happened with the price of oil. Oil yesterday was trading about $21 a barrel. That has a pretty significant impact on ethanol prices. In addition to that, the other thing that's happened is probably what I already alluded to is people driving, overall demand. You have price of gas today probably below $1 a gallon in certain parts of our part of the Midwest, which is unprecedented. Now, that is not increasing our demand when you really have pretty close to 80% in the entire country under a stay-at-home. So people aren't driving. And with gas or with oil or even with ethanol, in order for plants to run, you got to have people using that product. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of negative, but I'll also give you a little bit of realism as well. With demand being down considerably, the state of Minnesota, for example, gasoline consumption was down 70%. And I would say that's probably been consistent probably anywhere you travel. That being said, people, if they're driving, they're still using ethanol. So the overall industry is not completely shut down. Now, the industry is going to have to turn down their level of production, and that is having an impact. And that's why I think you're going to continue to see corn basis stay a little bit wider. For how long that's going to take, I honestly don't know. But I think you have to continue to watch on when we can open up that marketplace. The ethanol industry is still going to stay. There is going to probably be some changes along the way that we'll have to continue to monitor and watch. But overall, the ethanol industry is still going to be there. It's probably going to change a little bit, but it's still going to be viable. The other thing that I would state is when you look at that corn price, and then when you looked at I would say the planting intentions. I think we had pretty close to 94.7 million acres of corn that was actually planted, and 82 to 83 million acres of soybeans. People are saying, well, why, with where corn prices were at, why are they planting so much corn? When farmers made a lot of those decisions, there's a little thing called crop insurance, which we happen to sell crop insurance, and it's a very important risk management tool. I think people will continue to probably plant that corn. My only caveat with that would be a little thing called weather. Those of you in the Midwest, we had a very wet spring, so our planting acres weren't there. But I think if we have a very good spring with weather, I think people are going to plant corn because of crop insurance. Crop insurance was a way of protecting a little bit of a floor for a lot of our grain producers. If I'd flip to the dairy side, Class 3 milk prices, and I'll also throw in our swine producers as well. Remember what I mentioned on Class 3 milk prices? We had very good prices. Really, our overall revenue was doing pretty well, and I would say millback prices through March will probably be okay, is what's happened with Class 3 milk futures going forward. What's really happened is anybody that, when you look at what happened with the virus itself, you had pretty much every restaurant shut down, literally across the United States. So whether it was if you're going to an Applebee's or even McDonald's or wherever, I think people's how they're consuming food has fundamentally changed, and that has impacted. And everybody's going, well, wait a minute. If I went to the grocery store, there's hardly any milk there. But you have to understand the amount of butter and other dairy products that were used by restaurants and how that impacted prices. And so we saw a downturn in our Class 3 milk prices. In addition to that, if we look on the pork side, and if you went to a grocery store, you also saw there are pictures everywhere, and I have a Twitter account as well. It's called M Greenwood Ag Guy at twitter.com at Twitter. There's no meat on any shelves, and so all of a sudden we saw this uptick in pork price very quickly. But what they were buying was fundamentally different. They were loins, butts, and different cuts of meat. Even on the beef side, you saw ground hamburger, and people were probably loading up as best they possibly could. And all of a sudden, we've had a dramatic difference in demand on bacon price. Believe it or not, those of you that are pork producers, bacon prices have gotten relatively cheap in relation to the cutout price. So what that's all done, we've had really a drop down in pretty much all ag commodities. And it happened really quick. And I think that's when our phones started ringing. I call it exponentially. And then you throw in the SBA Paycheck Protection Program. There's just a lot of questions because that is going to help support and keeping labor on the farm or with producers that we work with. And that is a good thing. But then the questions were really saying, okay, what do you think? What's going to happen? And I'll always go back to probably, and I've done this for a long time, as my wife says, I have gray hair. But it probably goes back to everything that we always talk about regarding all our clients all the time. And I think it's important for us and you as producers to, you can't overreact. The other thing I would say is there's certain things that we have to do and you have to do in order to be successful long term. And first of all, if you're a producer, you got to have a really good relationship with your lender. And that's so important from a producer standpoint. And the other thing, and again, I love working with farmers. They're just an extraordinary group of people. But the thing that I've always encouraged the clients that I work with and our sales team across Compere and our insurance specialists and all our team members do a great job with that. You're better off having that proactive relationship and really being transparent in that relationship with your lender. You're better off explaining kind of what your situation is. And so we can understand that, because if you're not fully telling us that story, it's hard for us to help you as best we possibly can. If you're actually transparent and kind of give us what your situation is, I think we can do a better job of helping you. If you have questions along the way, or if I keep blabbing, you're saying, let me ask some questions. If you have some questions, make sure you submit questions along the way. And so I would, again, is making sure you have that proactive relationship with the lender. A couple things that I always tell producers that I think you just got to do in order to be successful long term is you got to understand your cost of production. And to me, it doesn't matter which commodity that you raise, whether it's corn, soybeans, you milk cows, raise pigs, raise cattle. You got to understand what your cost of production is, bar none. The other thing is I think you got to understand where you're at financially, what your current financials look like for your business and your operation. Now, there's a couple of things and it's really, for me, it's like when you go in for an annual physical or annual checkup, I think the better analysis that you do on the overall numbers that you have in your business, the better off that you're going to understand what you need to do regarding your business as well. And so there, if you have those numbers, you understand what your cost of production is, you have good numbers to analyze your business, then I think you can go to your lender and you have these times, there's options that we both can look at and saying, okay, what can we do to help through this potential downturn? Now, part of that might be when you look at where long-term rates are at today. You got 10-year treasuries sitting at historic lows. So looking at putting some of your debt over long-term debt absolutely makes sense. That gives yourself some more working capital. So if you have fixed assets such as land or hog barns or dairy facilities, making sure that you probably leverage those assets up and give yourself some more working capital. That is a really important piece that I think you need to consider, especially with where long-term rates are at today. So to me, it's like rebalancing the balance sheet, and I think that's a very good option to look at today. The other thing that I continue to probably talk to a lot of our clients on, again, regardless of any commodity, is margin management and risk management. Crop insurance is a very important piece that you can actually use. And I think you got to continue to make sure that you're using that tool. But in addition to that, if I look on the dairy side, using our dairy revenue protection or dairy margin coverage, we had some opportunities to lock in some pretty good floors for a lot of producers. And I think those things, and hey, I understand that not everybody did that. And I think there's people that have a tendency to beat themselves up when you don't fully execute on those. But I think there's also learning points that you say, okay, I got to make sure when the opportunity is there, where the margins are good, that I capture those opportunities. Especially when I look at the dairy revenue protection, you buy yourself a floor and you have that upside. I would continue to make sure that you fully understand all the risk management tools that you have in place. Those of you that know me, and actually if you go in my offices, I have pictures of pigs everywhere. And so the swine producers, I've spent a lot of time there. That group has done a very good job with risk management, and they continue to do a really good job with that. The level of volatility has been unprecedented. I think you got to make sure to keep using those tools. There is an opportunity to lock in some profits there as well. The last thing I'm going to stress is making sure that you kind of stay the course in terms of, if you've been here to date and you've been successful to date, don't deviate. And it's kind of like, okay, if you got a winning record and you continue to win, I wouldn't deviate from that. And yeah, you're probably going to have some stumps along the way, but kind of make sure that you continue to do the things that got you to the point where you're successful. The other thing I'd always stress on, every business, every operation has areas that they need to improve on. And I think this is a perfect time you got to take a look at and say, okay, what areas can I get better on that can make sure that my business is successful long term? The last thing I'm going to leave you with, and make sure if you have any questions, feel free to do so. The last thing I'm going to stress is I read a book over the weekend, and it talks about mindset, that in order to be successful really in life in general, you got to have hope. And I think, when you look at the U.S., where we're at today, you hear all the negative. But also I'd want to stress of all the people that are doing the right things, whether it's our healthcare workers or whether it's you as farmers delivering food, the hope that you inspire people and do good for others. And I think that's the other thing I want to leave you with, that I understand where things are at today, but I think if you have the mindset that things will continue to get better, everybody will be fine. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you.